Before there were names for forces, before equations, before fear or understanding, there was already something holding everything in place without ever announcing itself. Gravity has never asked for attention. It does not arrive with sound or warning, and it does not demand belief. It simply exists, quietly shaping every movement you have ever made, from the first step you learned to take to the way your body now settles into rest. Tonight, there is no need to analyze it, no need to master it. This is an invitation to notice what has always been there, patiently, long before this moment, and long after it will pass. As you listen, there is nothing you need to do with your thoughts. They can drift, return, or fade entirely. Gravity does not require focus in order to function, and neither does this story. Just as the planet beneath you does not tighten its grip when you stop paying attention, this narrative will not demand effort or alertness. It moves at the pace of large things, slow, inevitable, unconcerned with urgency. You are allowed to listen the way the universe itself unfolds, without haste, without correction, without resistance. Most of us grow up believing gravity is something active, something that pulls, drags, or threatens to make us fall. It is described as a force that acts upon us, as though we are constantly being tugged downward by an invisible hand. Over time, that idea quietly shapes how we relate not only to physics, but to life itself. We begin to imagine stability as something we must fight for, something that could fail if we relax too much. And yet, gravity has never needed our cooperation. It has never rushed. It has never tightened its hold in moments of uncertainty. It has always worked the same way, whether we understood it or not. In the vastness of the cosmos, gravity is not loud. Compared to other fundamental interactions, it is astonishingly gentle. But gentleness does not mean weakness. It means patience. It means a kind of influence that does not overwhelm, but instead waits, shaping outcomes over immense spans of time. Galaxies are not built in moments of forceful action. They emerge slowly, as matter responds to a presence that never leaves. This same presence is here now, beneath the chair, the bed, the floor, and far deeper than any structure you can see. As your breathing continues on its own rhythm, you might begin to sense that gravity is not something happening to you, but something you are already part of. You are not being pulled into the earth so much as you are following a path that has always existed, a path written into the shape of space itself. There is no edge you are approaching, no sudden drop waiting beneath you. There is only continuity, a smooth unfolding that has guided oceans, mountains, planets, and stars with the same quiet certainty. This documentary is not about revealing a hidden danger or correcting a simple mistake. It is about softening an idea that has been held too tightly for too long. It is about letting gravity return to what it truly is, not a threat, not a pressure, not a demand, but a context, a background presence that allows motion without chaos, rest without collapse, and sleep without fear. You do not need to stay awake to follow this journey. In fact, the deeper this understanding settles, the less effort it requires. Somewhere far beyond your awareness, the Earth is moving at extraordinary speed, carrying you through space in a wide, graceful curve around the sun. You do not feel this motion because it is constant, balanced, and uninterrupted. The same principle applies here. There is nothing abrupt waiting ahead. Each idea will arrive gently, connect naturally to the next, and then drift onward, just as orbits do. You are free to remain conscious for every word, or to let the sound become background like the steady presence of the ground itself. So allow your attention to loosen. Let the idea of control soften. Gravity does not push, it does not hurry, it does not insist. It simply provides a path and remains faithful to it. As we begin, there is only one thing to remember. You are already held, already oriented, already moving exactly as you should be. Everything else can wait. There is a quiet relief that comes from realizing you were never meant to hold everything up by yourself. Long before you learned the word gravity, long before you understood falling, standing, or balance, there was already a structure beneath every movement you would ever make. Not a structure of metal or stone, but of shape, of direction, of geometry so subtle that it rarely enters conscious thought. Gravity does not announce itself as a force acting upon you. It exists more like a landscape, already formed, already waiting, asking nothing more than that you move within it. From childhood onward, we are taught to imagine gravity as an invisible hand pulling objects downward. This image is simple, memorable, and deeply misleading. It suggests effort, tension, and struggle. A pull implies resistance, as though the universe is constantly dragging things where they would not otherwise go. Over time, this metaphor quietly influences the way we understand safety and control. If gravity is pulling, then stability must be something we actively fight for. Relax too much, and you fall. Let go, and something bad happens. Yet this picture says more about human anxiety than it does about reality. In truth, gravity does not behave like a rope or a hook. It does not reach out and grab. Modern physics describes it as curvature. Space itself bends in the presence of mass, and objects simply follow the natural paths that result from that shape. There is no pushing involved, no pulling in the ordinary sense, just motion along a pre-existing geometry, like water flowing downhill not because it is being dragged, but because the terrain already slopes that way. Everything in the universe moves according to the shape of the space it inhabits. When you think of gravity this way, something subtle but important begins to change. The universe stops feeling aggressive. There is no force hunting you down, no invisible pressure insisting that you stay in line. Instead, there is a kind of quiet guidance, a set of paths that exist whether you acknowledge them or not. You are not being compelled. You are being oriented. And orientation, unlike force, does not demand effort. Consider the Earth itself. At this very moment, it is traveling through space at an extraordinary speed, carrying oceans, continents, cities, and your own body along with it. The planet is not stationary. It is in continuous motion around the sun, following a curved path shaped by gravity. From one perspective, the Earth is perpetually falling toward the sun. From another, it is missing the sun just enough to keep falling around it instead. This is what an orbit truly is, not suspension, not balance, but endless, gentle falling along a curved path. You do not feel this fall. There is no sensation of dropping, no rush of air, no fear. The scale is too large, the motion too smooth, the geometry too stable. And this is one of gravity's greatest lessons. When motion is continuous and uninterrupted, it becomes indistinguishable from rest. What feels like stillness is often simply movement that has no sharp edges. The same is true on the surface of the Earth. You feel solid and stationary, not because gravity is pulling you down, but because the ground beneath you is preventing you from following your natural path through curved space. The sensation of weight is not the sensation of gravity acting on you. It is the sensation of being stopped. The floor, the chair, the bed is pushing upward, resisting the motion you would otherwise continue. In a sense, what feels normal is actually interruption. This idea can feel unsettling at first because it reverses a lifetime of intuition. We are used to thinking of support as something active, something that holds us up. But gravity does not hold you in place. It offers a direction. The ground is what intervenes. Without that intervention, you would not feel heavier, you would feel lighter, or rather, you would feel nothing at all. Astronauts in orbit are often described as being free from gravity, but this is another misunderstanding. Gravity is still very much present where they are. In fact, it is precisely gravity that keeps their spacecraft in orbit. What they experience is free fall. Continuous, uninterrupted motion along a curved path. With no surface pushing back against them, there is no sensation of weight, no pressure, no strain. The body relaxes into the geometry of space itself. There is something deeply comforting about this, once it settles in. It suggests that effort and pressure are not inherent features of existence. They arise when motion is blocked, when paths are resisted, when we insist on standing still against a flow that was never meant to be fought. Gravity, left to itself, is remarkably gentle. It allows, it guides, it does not demand. On a psychological level, this understanding can quietly ease a long-held tension. Many people carry the sense that life is something they must constantly brace against, as though relaxation will lead to collapse. But the universe does not work that way. Stability is not created through constant effort. It emerges from alignment with the paths that already exist. Just as planets do not strain to remain in orbit, there are aspects of human life that remain stable not because of force, but because of fit. When you imagine gravity as geometry rather than aggression, rest begins to feel safer. Letting go no longer means falling into chaos. It means allowing yourself to move along a trajectory that has always been there. You were never suspended over nothing. There has always been a shape beneath your experience, even when you could not see it. Think of walking at night along a familiar path. The darkness hides the details, but the path itself does not vanish. It exists whether you see it or not. Each step lands where countless steps have landed before. Gravity is like that path. It is not created by your decision to walk. It is already there, laid out in the fabric of space. Your movement does not invent it. It simply follows it. This perspective also changes how we think about control. Control implies force, correction, and constant vigilance. Geometry does not require any of that. A river does not control the water that flows through it. It shapes the motion by existing as it is. Gravity works the same way. It does not supervise. It does not adjust moment by moment. It simply remains, and everything else responds naturally over time. There is a profound humility in this idea. Not the humility of being small or insignificant, but the humility of recognizing that you were never meant to manage the universe. You do not have to keep yourself attached to the planet. You do not have to concentrate to remain oriented. The structure of reality takes care of that without effort, without awareness, without concern for whether you believe in it or not. As your body rests now, supported by surfaces that interrupt your natural motion, you can begin to sense the deeper continuity beneath that interruption. Beneath the bed, beneath the floor, beneath the planet itself, there is a curve, a vast, gentle bending of space that has been guiding matter for billions of years. It does not rush. It does not weaken with time. It does not grow impatient. This is the geometry of existence, invisible, constant, and utterly reliable. You have lived within it every moment of your life, even when you thought you were standing still, even when you felt lost, even when effort felt unavoidable. Gravity was not pulling you toward an end. It was quietly offering a path. And perhaps the most reassuring part of all is this: the path does not disappear when you stop paying attention. It does not collapse when you rest. It does not demand that you stay awake to maintain it. Gravity existed before you learned its name, and it will continue long after this thought fades. For now, it is enough to know that you are not being pushed through the universe. You are being gently guided through a landscape that has always known where you belong. At some point in life, falling becomes something to fear. As children, we fall often, without philosophy, without interpretation. The ground arrives quickly, lessons are learned quietly, and the body adjusts. But as awareness grows, falling becomes symbolic. It turns into failure, loss, instability, a sign that something has gone wrong. We learn to associate descent with danger and ascent with safety. And yet, the universe itself does not share this preference. In the language of gravity, falling is not a mistake. It is the rule. In physics, one of the most counterintuitive truths is that orbit is not the absence of falling, but its perfection. A planet does not stay in place because it is supported or held. It stays in place because it is falling continuously, always moving toward the object it orbits, and always missing it by just enough. This balance is not achieved through correction or effort. It is a natural consequence of motion and geometry. To orbit is to fall forever without ever arriving. This idea can feel unsettling when first encountered. We are accustomed to thinking of stability as stillness, as something fixed and unmoving. But cosmic stability is dynamic. It depends on motion. A satellite that stops moving forward does not become more secure. It falls straight down. Likewise, a planet that suddenly lost its sideways motion would plunge toward the star it once circled so calmly. What keeps everything in place is not resistance to falling, but participation in it. Astronauts often describe a profound shift in perception when they first experience orbit. They do not feel as though gravity has disappeared. Instead, they feel as though the constant pressure they once took for granted has been removed. Their bodies no longer press against the floor. Their limbs float without effort. The sensation is not one of being pulled away from Earth, but of being allowed to follow gravity freely, without interruption. Gravity is still there, shaping the orbit of the spacecraft, guiding its path around the planet. What is gone is the barrier. In this uninterrupted fall, the body enters a state of deep physical quiet. Muscles that once worked constantly to counter pressure can finally relax. The spine lengthens, joints decompress. Even breathing changes subtly. What appears from the outside to be weightlessness is in fact a state of complete surrender to motion. Nothing is being resisted. Nothing is being held back. There is an unexpected emotional resonance in this. Many astronauts speak of calm rather than excitement, of clarity rather than thrill. The fear of falling vanishes when falling never completes itself. When descent has no sudden end, it loses its threat. It becomes background. It becomes normal. This has implications far beyond physics. Much of human anxiety is tied to the fear of decline. We fear slipping behind, falling short, losing ground. We imagine that if we stop striving upward, something terrible will happen. But gravity suggests a different narrative. Not all downward motion is collapse. Some forms of descent are simply the other half of stability. In life, there are periods when progress does not look like ascent. Energy lowers. Ambitions soften. Attention turns inward. From a certain perspective, this can feel like failure, like falling. But there are times when not rising is exactly what keeps the system balanced. Just as a planet must fall to remain in orbit, there are moments when letting oneself descend gently is what prevents a more dangerous drop. The calm paradox of orbit teaches that safety does not always mean stopping motion. Sometimes it means continuing it smoothly, without sharp changes. The danger in falling is not the movement itself, but the suddenness. Abrupt interruption is what causes harm. Continuous motion, even downward motion, can be deeply stabilizing. On Earth, we rarely experience true free fall for more than a moment. The ground arrives quickly, ending the motion, but we can glimpse its quality in other ways. In the sensation of floating in water, where the body is supported evenly. In the moment just before sleep, when muscular tension releases and the body seems to sink inward rather than downward. In deep states of rest, when effort fades and awareness softens, there is a feeling remarkably similar to falling without fear. Sleep itself can be understood as a kind of psychological orbit. Thoughts continue to move, but without sharp direction. Awareness drifts, but does not collapse. The mind falls gently into a different state, missing full unconsciousness just enough to remain alive, dreaming, regulated. Insomnia often arises when the mind resists this fall, attempting to stay upright when the natural motion is inward. The universe does not struggle to keep things where they belong. It allows them to move, and through that movement, patterns emerge that are stable over unimaginable lengths of time. The Earth has been falling around the Sun for billions of years. Not once has it needed to stop falling in order to remain where it is. This realization can soften the way we relate to our own moments of descent. When energy drops, when certainty fades, when momentum changes direction, it may not mean something is wrong. It may mean that a different kind of balance is forming, one that cannot be seen from within the moment, but that reveals itself over time. There is also comfort in knowing that falling, in the gravitational sense, is never lonely. Everything that orbits is falling together. Planets fall with their moons, stars fall with their planets, galaxies fall within clusters, drawn gently toward shared centers of mass. Even on the largest scales, the universe is a choreography of mutual descent. No object falls alone. Each motion is shaped by the presence of others. This interconnected falling creates structure rather than chaos. It gives rise to predictable paths, repeating cycles, and long-term reliability. Seasons return, orbits persist, night follows day. These are not signs of stillness, but of motion that has found its rhythm. Emotionally, this can be deeply reassuring. It suggests that stability does not require constant vigilance. You do not need to hold yourself rigid to remain where you are. There are rhythms larger than individual effort, patterns that continue even when attention wanders. Trusting these patterns does not mean giving up agency. It means recognizing that not all movement away from effort is dangerous. Imagine releasing the fear associated with falling, not by eliminating motion, but by changing its meaning. Falling does not have to imply loss. In the universe, falling is how systems stay connected. It is how distance becomes relationship, how separation becomes orbit. As you rest now, you are not suspended above some threatening drop. You are already in motion, carried along a vast, gentle curve through space and time. The sensation of stillness you feel is simply the absence of abrupt change. Beneath it, motion continues, smooth and reliable. The paradox is calm because it is true. When falling is balanced, it becomes rest. When descent is continuous, it becomes stability. And when fear is removed from the idea of downward motion, something essential relaxes. Life does not demand that you always rise. Sometimes it asks only that you continue moving without resistance, trusting that the path curves in ways you cannot yet see. Just as the Earth trusts its orbit, just as the moon trusts its fall, you can allow yourself moments of descent without interpreting them as failure. In the quiet language of gravity, falling is not the opposite of being held. It is the way holding happens. And in that understanding, there is space to rest, to breathe, and to let the fear of falling dissolve into something much closer to peace. There is a common assumption that the most powerful things in the universe must also be the most forceful. We imagine strength as something loud, immediate, and undeniable. Explosions, collisions, flashes of energy that announce their presence in an instant. By that measure, gravity seems almost unimpressive. Among the fundamental interactions of nature, it is the weakest by far. It can be easily overcome by a simple magnet, by the chemical forces that hold your body together, by the muscles that allow you to lift your own hand. And yet, despite this apparent weakness, gravity is the architect of the largest structures that exist. This contradiction invites a different understanding of power. Gravity does not dominate through intensity. It does not overwhelm matter in sudden bursts. Instead, it operates through duration, through presence, through the quiet certainty of never leaving. While other forces act quickly and fade just as fast, gravity remains, always on, always shaping, always patient. On the smallest scales, gravity is almost irrelevant. Atoms are not held together by it. Molecules do not depend on it. Life itself unfolds largely indifferent to gravity's pull, adapting easily to its gentle influence. But as scale increases, gravity's true nature begins to reveal itself. What it lacks in strength, it makes up for in reach. It acts across empty space. It does not require contact. It does not weaken with familiarity. Given enough time, it gathers what nothing else can. Galaxies are not forged by violent assembly alone. They are shaped over billions of years by gravity's slow persuasion. Clouds of gas drift almost imperceptibly toward regions of slightly greater density. Stars form not in moments of drama, but through gradual accumulation. Entire galactic arms emerge not because gravity shouts, but because it waits, patiently, relentlessly, without ever needing to accelerate the process. This patience is easy to overlook in a human lifetime. We are drawn to fast causes and immediate effects. We measure impact in moments, not epochs. But gravity operates on a different clock. It is unconcerned with urgency. It does not rush outcomes. It allows time itself to become part of its mechanism. There is something deeply consoling in this, especially for minds accustomed to pressure. Modern life often equates speed with importance. If something is not happening quickly, it is assumed to be failing. If progress is not visible, it is dismissed. Gravity offers a counterexample written across the universe. Some of the most decisive forces do their work slowly, almost invisibly, until the result becomes undeniable. Consider the formation of the Earth itself. Long before oceans, before continents, before life, there was a gradual gathering of dust and rock within a swirling disk around a young star. Each particle felt only a minuscule attraction to its neighbors. No single moment defined the planet's birth. Instead, over immense spans of time, gravity allowed matter to find itself, to accumulate, to settle into a stable form. What emerged was not fragile, it was enduring. This endurance is gravity's signature. It does not need to convince. It does not need to compete. It simply remains present long enough that everything else must eventually respond. In this way, gravity reshapes not only matter, but outcomes. It favors processes that can persist. It rewards what can last. Emotionally, this offers a quiet reassurance. Many anxieties stem from the fear that time is running out, that if something does not change quickly, it never will. Gravity tells a different story. It suggests that influence does not have to be immediate to be real, that slow change is not a sign of weakness, but of inevitability. There is a profound difference between forces that act quickly and influences that act continuously. Fast forces can shock, disrupt, and destroy. Slow influences shape, stabilize, and endure. Gravity belongs to the second category. It does not tear things apart, it brings them together, not by force, but by invitation repeated endlessly over time. This patience is not passive. Gravity is always working, even when nothing seems to be happening. Even in the vast emptiness between galaxies, it is quietly drawing structures toward one another, creating filaments and clusters on scales so large that the human mind struggles to comprehend them. These patterns emerge not because gravity pushes hard, but because it never stops. There is an emotional parallel here that is easy to miss. Human relationships, personal growth, and inner stability often depend less on dramatic action than on steady presence. Trust is not built through intensity alone. It forms through reliability, through knowing that something will still be there tomorrow, and the day after, and long after attention has shifted elsewhere. Gravity embodies this principle perfectly. It never raises its voice. It never demands recognition. And yet, it is impossible to escape its influence. Even light, the fastest thing in the universe, bends in its presence, not because gravity forces it to slow down, but because space itself curves, and light simply follows the path available to it. This bending of light is one of the clearest demonstrations of gravity's patient power. Around massive objects, space curves so gently that light, traveling in straight lines through that space, appears to arc. There is no sudden deflection, no collision, just a gradual redirection that becomes noticeable only over distance. The effect is subtle, but the consequences are profound. Entire views of the universe are shaped by this quiet bending. Patience, in this sense, is not waiting idly. It is maintaining influence without interruption. Gravity does not pause when unobserved. It does not weaken when ignored. It does not change its behavior based on outcomes. It simply continues, allowing time to do the rest. For an anxious mind, this can feel like an unfamiliar form of safety. We are used to equating security with control, with active management. Gravity offers security without supervision. It does not check whether things are aligned. It does not intervene selectively. Its consistency is the source of its reliability. There is also a certain kindness in gravity's slowness. Sudden change can be traumatic. Rapid forces leave little room for adaptation. Gravity's influence, by contrast, allows systems to adjust gradually. Orbits evolve slowly. Structures settle over time. Even catastrophic events, like stellar collapse, occur over scales that allow surrounding systems to respond. In personal terms, this suggests that not all meaningful change needs to be rushed. Some transformations are meant to unfold at a pace that feels almost imperceptible day to day, but undeniable when viewed across years. Gravity teaches that time itself can be an ally, not an enemy. Imagine gravity as a presence that never insists, never interrupts, never leaves. Someone who does not argue or persuade, but whose influence is felt precisely because it is constant. Someone who does not need urgency to be effective. This is not weakness. It is a different kind of strength. As you rest now, the same patience is at work beneath you. Gravity is not pressing you into the surface. It is not demanding that you stay alert or responsive. It is simply there, shaping your position gently, continuously, without concern for how quickly you fall asleep or how slowly your thoughts drift. You are not required to hurry. Nothing essential is being delayed. The universe itself unfolds on timescales far longer than a single night, far longer than a single life. Gravity has been shaping outcomes since long before human awareness, and it will continue long after this moment passes. In recognizing gravity's patience, something in the body can soften. There is permission to slow down, to release the urgency that does not truly belong to you, to trust that not all influence must be immediate to be real, and not all strength must be forceful to be effective. There is a quiet assumption most people carry without ever examining it, that weight is the direct sensation of gravity itself. We say we feel gravity because we feel heavy. We describe exhaustion as feeling weighed down. We associate pressure with the planet pulling on us more strongly when we are tired or overwhelmed. Yet this connection, so natural it feels unquestionable, hides one of the strangest truths about how gravity is actually experienced. What you feel as weight is not gravity acting on you, it is resistance. At this moment, gravity is doing exactly what it always does. It is offering a direction through curved space, a path your body would naturally follow if nothing stood in the way. But something is standing in the way. The floor, the bed, the chair. These surfaces are not passive. They are actively pushing upward against you, preventing your body from continuing its motion. The sensation you interpret as weight is the feeling of being stopped. Reverses the familiar story. Gravity is not pressing you down into the ground. The ground is pressing up into you. The pressure in your muscles, the compression in your joints, the sense of heaviness in your limbs are all consequences of interruption. You are not feeling gravity's pull. You are feeling the cost of being held still. In physics, this is not a metaphor. It is a precise description. If gravity alone were acting on you, without any surface resisting it, you would not feel heavy at all. You would feel weightless. This is why astronauts in orbit, still deep within Earth's gravitational influence, experience no sensation of weight. Gravity has not vanished. Resistance has. This realization can feel disorienting at first, because it suggests that what we consider normal is actually a state of constant opposition. Standing still is not neutral. It is an active condition, one that requires continuous force from the ground and continuous adjustment from the body. Muscles tense subtly to maintain posture. Bones compress. Systems compensate. The body works quietly, constantly, to remain where it is. Falling, by contrast, removes this opposition. In free fall, there is no surface to push back, no need for muscles to brace, no requirement to maintain alignment against pressure. The body enters a state of mechanical honesty, responding only to gravity itself without interruption. The sensation is not strain, but release. This is why moments of simulated weightlessness, even brief ones, can feel unexpectedly calming. In water, buoyancy reduces resistance, redistributing pressure evenly across the body. In moments just before sleep, muscle tone decreases, and the sense of weight shifts inward. Even lying down, compared to standing, spreads resistance across a larger area, reducing localized pressure. Relief does not come from escaping gravity, but from softening resistance to it. The idea that being still is stranger than falling challenges deep-seated intuitions. Stillness feels safe because it is familiar. Falling feels dangerous because it is associated with sudden endings. But from the perspective of physics, falling is the simpler state. It is what happens when nothing interferes. Stillness is what requires explanation. This has subtle psychological consequences. Many people experience fatigue, not because they are moving too much, but because they are resisting too constantly, holding positions, holding roles, holding expectations. Just as the body grows tired from standing rigidly, the mind grows tired from uninterrupted resistance. Gravity does not demand this resistance. It does not require you to brace. It offers a path, not a posture. The effort comes from stopping, not from moving. When this idea begins to settle, it can quietly reframe the way rest is understood. Rest is not the absence of motion. It is the reduction of resistance. Think again of astronauts in orbit. Their bodies are in continuous motion around the Earth, traveling thousands of kilometers per hour. And yet, they feel profoundly at rest. Muscular effort decreases. The sensation of pressure vanishes. The body adapts quickly to this state, not because gravity has gone away, but because opposition has. There is an emotional parallel here that is difficult to ignore. Much of what feels heavy in life is not the movement itself, but the effort to remain fixed when change is already underway. Situations feel exhausting when we brace against them, when we try to hold a position that no longer aligns with the path unfolding beneath us. Stillness, in this sense, can be deceptive. It can mask enormous effort. A system under constant tension may appear calm from the outside while expending continuous energy to remain unchanged. Gravity reminds us that true ease does not come from holding still, but from allowing motion to proceed without unnecessary obstruction. Even sleep reflects this principle. Falling asleep is often described as letting go, as surrendering wakefulness. But what is really happening is a gradual release of resistance. Muscles stop bracing, thoughts lose their grip, attention loosens. The mind does not force itself into sleep, it stops preventing sleep. Insomnia, by contrast, often feels like a kind of internal standing. The body is tired, but something remains upright, alert, braced. Thoughts press upward, resisting the natural inward descent. The effort is subtle but persistent, and it creates a sense of heaviness far more draining than motion ever could. The ground beneath you right now is engaged in a constant negotiation with your body. It pushes up, your body pushes down. Neither is aggressive, neither is failing. This agreement allows you to remain where you are, but it is not effortless. The effort is simply distributed so evenly that it fades into the background of experience. Recognizing this does not mean rejecting stillness or wishing to fall endlessly. It means understanding that pressure is not a property of gravity itself, it is a property of interruption. When interruption lessens, relief follows. This understanding can gently change the way rest is approached. Instead of trying to become perfectly still, which often increases tension, rest becomes an invitation to reduce resistance, to allow the body to settle, to let gravity do what it does best: guide motion without demand. There is a sensory metaphor hidden here, one that mirrors everyday experience. Imagine leaning fully into a current rather than standing rigidly against it. The current does not disappear. It remains present, powerful, directional. But the experience changes completely. What was once exhausting becomes supportive. What felt like pressure becomes flow. The floor beneath you is firm, reliable, unchanging. But gravity beneath that floor is not static. It is motion-oriented, path-based, continuous. Your body exists at the boundary between these two realities. Pressure arises at the boundary. Relief arises when that boundary softens. In moments of deep relaxation, people often report feeling as though they are sinking, not falling, but dissolving gently into support. This sensation is not about being pulled downward more strongly. It is about resisting less. The distinction is subtle, but it matters. Gravity does not increase when you relax. It remains exactly the same. What changes is your relationship to resistance. Muscles release. Breathing deepens. The sense of effort fades. The body aligns more naturally with the path gravity already provides. This is why the ground can be experienced as comforting rather than oppressive. It is not an enemy holding you down. It is a partner in maintaining your place within a moving universe, a silent agreement between matter and geometry. When life feels heavy, it is worth remembering that heaviness does not always mean too much gravity. Often, it means too much resistance, too many surfaces pushing back, too many places where motion is being interrupted unnecessarily. Gravity itself is not tiring. It does not drain energy. It does not exhaust systems. What exhausts is fighting the path it quietly offers, standing still against it, holding against it, refusing to allow even the smallest descent. As this idea settles, the body may begin to experience stillness differently, not as something to achieve through effort, but as something that emerges when effort is no longer required. Stillness becomes less rigid, more fluid, less about holding position and more about resting within motion. You are not pinned to the planet. You are not pressed into existence. You are simply meeting resistance at a surface, while beneath that surface, a vast and patient geometry continues uninterrupted. Recognizing this does not change gravity's behavior, but it can change how heavy the world feels. In the end, weight is not a measure of how strongly the universe pulls on you. It is a measure of how strongly you are being stopped. And sometimes, the most profound rest comes not from becoming lighter, but from allowing yourself to stop resisting what was never pushing you in the first place. There is a quiet fear that lives beneath many human thoughts, often unnamed and rarely examined. The fear that everything disappears too easily, that moments fade without trace, that experiences dissolve the instant they end, that time erases rather than preserves. This fear does not always announce itself as dread. Sometimes it appears as urgency, as the need to hold on, to record, to remember before something slips away. Against this background anxiety, gravity offers an unexpected form of comfort. It suggests that the universe is not forgetful. It suggests that nothing truly vanishes without leaving an imprint. Gravity is not only a guide for motion, it is also a record keeper. Every massive object shapes the space around it, and that shape persists as long as the mass exists. But even when the mass is gone, its influence does not vanish instantly. The universe remembers. It carries traces of what once was, embedded in motion, structure, and curvature. Stars are born, live, and die, but their gravitational influence does not end neatly with their final light. Long after a star has exhausted its fuel and collapsed, the space around it remains altered. Orbits that once formed around it carry forward its history. Streams of matter continue to follow paths shaped by a presence that is no longer visible. In this way, gravity preserves stories even when their original actors have disappeared. Galaxies themselves are archives. Their shapes reflect ancient interactions, mergers, and near misses that occurred billions of years ago. Long tails of stars stretch across space, remnants of gravitational encounters that no living observer witnessed. These structures are not random. They are memories written in motion. Gravity does not forget what has passed through it. It integrates events into patterns that endure. On the largest scales, the universe resembles a vast network of filaments and voids, shaped by gravitational attraction over immense periods of time. These structures did not arise quickly. They formed slowly, as tiny irregularities in the early universe were amplified, stretched, and deepened by gravity's patient influence. What began as nearly uniform became richly structured. The present still carries the imprint of the past, preserved not as static images, but as ongoing motion. This idea challenges the sense that time is a simple eraser. In the gravitational universe, time is more like sedimentation. Events settle into structure. They become part of the landscape. Nothing dramatic needs to happen for memory to persist. Continuity alone is enough. There is a parallel here with human experience that feels almost too precise to ignore. Personal memories do not exist as isolated snapshots. They shape how thoughts move, how emotions respond, how attention curves toward certain ideas rather than others. Even when specific details fade, their influence remains. Past experiences continue to guide motion long after conscious recall has softened. Gravity functions in a similar way. It does not store information in the way a computer does. It does not label or categorize. It simply shapes paths. And those paths, once shaped, continue to influence what comes next. Memory, in this sense, is not about preservation of detail. It is about preservation of influence. Black holes offer one of the most striking examples of this gravitational memory. When a massive star collapses, its gravity becomes so intense that not even light can escape. From the outside, much of what the star once was becomes inaccessible. And yet, the black hole still carries information about its mass, its spin, its history of interactions. The space around it remains deeply curved. Nearby objects respond to that curvature, tracing orbits that reflect the black hole's presence. Even when black holes merge, sending ripples through space-time itself, those ripples carry information about the masses and motions involved. Gravitational waves are, in a sense, the universe remembering an event by letting it echo. These waves travel across vast distances, long after the moment that created them has passed, gently stretching and compressing space wherever they go. This means that the universe is never entirely silent about its past. It speaks slowly, subtly, in patterns rather than narratives. But the memory is there, woven into the structure of reality itself. For someone lying awake at night, feeling small against the immensity of time, this perspective can be unexpectedly reassuring. Insignificance often arises from the belief that one's presence leaves no mark, that everything meaningful dissolves immediately into nothing. Gravity suggests otherwise. It implies that existence, by its very nature, participates in shaping what comes next. You do not need to be massive to matter in this sense. Influence does not scale only with size. Even the smallest mass contributes, however slightly, to the curvature of space. The effect may be imperceptible in isolation, but it is real, and when combined with countless others, it becomes part of the larger pattern. Nothing in the universe exists without consequence, not because of moral weight, but because presence itself alters geometry. Simply being somewhere, for some time, leaves a trace. This trace may not be visible, it may not be dramatic, but it is woven into motion. Human memory works the same way. You are shaped not only by what you remember clearly, but by what has quietly influenced you over time. Conversations long forgotten still affect how you interpret tone. Moments that seemed insignificant at the time still guide preferences and aversions. The mind, like gravity, retains influence even when explicit detail fades. This reframes the fear of being forgotten. Forgetting does not mean erasure, it means transformation. The memory shifts from conscious recall to structural influence. It becomes part of how things move rather than what is remembered directly. Gravity does not cling to the past. It does not freeze moments in place. It allows them to become part of the ongoing shape of reality. In doing so, it offers a model of remembrance that is gentle rather than obsessive. Nothing needs to be held tightly. Influence persists on its own. There is a quiet dignity in this. The universe does not archive out of fear. It does not preserve because it worries about loss. Memory arises naturally from continuity, from the simple fact that what happens affects what follows. As you rest now, your own experiences are not vanishing into nothing. They have already shaped the way your thoughts slow, the way your body releases tension, the way attention drifts. You do not need to recall them actively for them to matter. Their influence is already integrated. Even sleep itself is a kind of memory consolidation, a process by which experiences are woven more deeply into structure rather than surface awareness. The mind does not erase the day when consciousness fades, it reorganizes it. It lets gravity do its quiet work. The comfort here is subtle but profound. You are not required to preserve every moment consciously. You are not responsible for remembering everything. The universe is already remembering for you, not in words or images, but in the shape of what comes next. Gravity, in this sense, is like an archive that never closes. Not a library of records, but a living system in which every event leaves a contour. Those contours guide motion gently, without judgment, without urgency. Nothing is lost quickly in the cosmos. Stars leave remnants, orbits preserve histories. Space itself carries echoes. This does not mean everything lasts forever in the same form. It means that nothing simply disappears without consequence. For a mind prone to feeling fleeting, temporary, or replaceable, this perspective can soften something essential. You are not a moment that flashes and vanishes. You are part of a continuous shaping. Your presence has already curved paths you will never see. Gravity does not need acknowledgement to remember. It does not need gratitude. It simply integrates, and in doing so, it reminds us that existence itself is a form of inscription, not written in stone, but in motion. As the night deepens and awareness loosens, this idea can be allowed to settle without effort. You do not need to hold on to it. Like gravity itself, it will remain whether you attend to it or not. There is a particular kind of calm that does not come from silence alone, but from belonging. Not the belonging of being watched or protected, but the belonging of being included in something larger that continues without supervision. For some people, this calm arrives unexpectedly when they begin to think about gravity, not as a force to fear, but as a constant presence that never withdraws. These are not dramatic realizations. They do not arrive with revelation or excitement. They arrive quietly, often at night, when the mind is no longer trying to solve anything. Many longtime observers of the night sky describe a similar experience. They lie awake, not counting stars or naming constellations, but imagining the slow, steady movement of the earth beneath them. The planet turning, the planet falling, the planet following a path it has followed for billions of years. There is no urgency in this image, no threat, just continuity. And in that continuity, something inside the mind loosens. One observer describes it as replacing the idea of being still with the idea of being carried. Not carried in the sense of being lifted or removed from responsibility, but carried in the sense of being included in motion that does not require attention. The Earth does not ask permission to continue its orbit. It does not pause when someone falls asleep. Knowing this deeply rather than intellectually allows the mind to stop monitoring itself. Another person speaks of gravity as an anchor, but not the kind that holds a ship rigidly in place. Instead, it is an anchor that defines a range of movement. The ship drifts gently, responding to currents and wind, but it does not vanish into open water. The anchor does not restrict motion entirely. It gives it context. Gravity, in this sense, becomes a reference point rather than a restraint. What unites these experiences is the absence of vigilance. People who sleep better when thinking about gravity are not trying to control their thoughts. They are not visualizing outcomes or rehearsing plans. They are allowing themselves to feel situated, oriented, held by something that does not need them to stay awake. For many, insomnia is not caused by noise or discomfort, but by the feeling of floating without reference. Thoughts spin because there is no sense of trajectory. The mind searches for ground, for certainty, for something solid enough to rest against. Imagining gravity as a continuous path through space provides that ground without turning it into a demand. There is comfort in imagining the Earth itself as being in motion, rather than imagining oneself as stationary against a vast, moving universe. When the mind pictures the planet falling around the sun, the feeling of isolation shifts. You are no longer an object waiting in empty space. You are part of a shared trajectory, one among billions of bodies moving together along the same gentle curve. Some people describe this as a reversal of the fear of the void. Instead of imagining space as an emptiness beneath them, they imagine a path extending endlessly forward. The void becomes background, trajectory becomes foreground. Fear dissolves not because danger is eliminated, but because orientation is restored. There is also a subtle emotional difference between being watched and being held. Many sources of anxiety come from the feeling of being evaluated, measured, or monitored. Gravity does none of these things. It does not check compliance. It does not respond to mistakes. It does not tighten or loosen based on behavior. It remains exactly the same regardless of mood, success, or failure. This neutrality is deeply soothing. To be held without being judged, to be oriented without being directed, to be included without being examined. Gravity offers this kind of presence naturally, without intention, without awareness. People who use gravity as a mental anchor before sleep often describe a ritual-like quality to the practice, not a ritual of action, but of perspective. They do not repeat affirmations or instructions. They simply return to the image of the Earth moving through space, carrying oceans, mountains, cities, and sleeping bodies alike. The image does not need to be detailed. Precision is unnecessary. What matters is the sense of inevitability. The Earth will continue its path whether the mind watches or not. There is nothing to maintain, nothing to remember, nothing to fix. This allows the mind to relinquish responsibility without feeling negligent. Sleep becomes an act of trust rather than surrender. Trust that the trajectory continues. Trust that orientation does not depend on vigilance. Trust that the ground does not disappear when attention fades. One person describes imagining their body as temporarily joining the larger orbit. Not leaving the Earth, but aligning more consciously with its motion. The sensation is not of lifting away, but of settling in, as if the body stops trying to define its own position and allows the planet to define it instead. Another speaks of the relief that comes from knowing the Earth is not balanced precariously. It is not teetering on the edge of instability. It is deeply embedded in gravitational relationships that have proven reliable across immense spans of time. The same force that guides galaxies also guides this moment of rest. This sense of scale is important. Personal worries shrink not because they are dismissed, but because they are contextualized. The mind does not argue with its concerns. It places them within a larger continuity where they no longer need to dominate attention. Gravity does not erase problems. It does not solve conflicts, but it changes the background against which those problems are perceived. Against a background of reliable motion, urgency softens. Against a background of inevitability, fear loses sharpness. There is also something deeply physical about this comfort. The body responds to the idea of being supported by something vast and steady. Muscles release, breathing slows, the nervous system shifts from alertness to acceptance. This is not imagination overriding reality, it is imagination aligning with reality. The earth really is moving. Gravity really is guiding that motion. The support is not symbolic, it is literal. You are not inventing a comfort, you are noticing one that already exists. Some people find it helpful to imagine the line of gravity extending through their body, through the floor, through the Earth's core, and outward into space, connecting them to the sun and beyond. Not as a beam or a force, but as a direction. A shared orientation that links everything together without effort. Others simply imagine the earth turning beneath them, bringing night and day in a steady rhythm. The thought that morning will arrive whether they watch for it or not removes the pressure to anticipate it. Sleep no longer feels like a gap that must be guarded. It feels like a phase in a continuous cycle. What is striking about all these accounts is how ordinary they are. There is no mysticism required, no belief beyond what is already true. Gravity does not need interpretation to function, and it does not need imagination to be real. The imagination simply allows the mind to notice what the body has always known. From infancy onward, the body trusts gravity implicitly. It learns to balance, to walk, to fall and rise again. The fear of gravity is learned later, layered on top of experience by misunderstanding and metaphor. Removing that fear is not about acquiring new knowledge. It is about releasing a false narrative. Sleep returns more easily when the mind stops framing gravity as a threat and begins to experience it as context. Context does not demand attention. It allows it to fade. As the night deepens, the stories people tell themselves grow quieter. The image of being held by gravity does not need to be maintained. Like gravity itself, it remains whether thought attends to it or not. The mind can let go, knowing the path continues. There is no need to watch the earth fall around the sun. It has done so reliably for longer than human memory. There is no need to monitor the ground beneath you. It has held countless sleepers before, and it will hold countless more. To sleep while knowing this is not to escape reality, it is to align with it. To trust that orientation does not depend on effort. To allow the body to rest within a trajectory that has never required supervision. In this way, sleep becomes less about shutting down and more about joining in. Joining the slow, steady movement that has always been underway. Joining a shared motion that does not hurry, does not stop, and does not forget. Gravity does not promise comfort, it offers continuity. And for many, continuity is enough. Imagine not as a spectacle, not as a catastrophe, but as a quiet thought experiment, that gravity were to vanish for a single second. No explosion, no tearing sound, no dramatic warning, just a sudden absence of something that is almost never noticed because it is always there. The most striking feature of that second would not be chaos, it would be disorientation, a silence in the structure of reality that reveals how much was being said without words. For 1 second, the universe would not immediately shatter, buildings would not instantly collapse into dust, oceans would not leap into space in a single violent gesture. Most systems would continue briefly, carried by momentum, by inertia, by habits of motion that do not end the moment gravity does. What would be missing is not matter but guidance. Direction would vanish. The quiet instruction that tells every object how to move would fall. In that second, the earth would not suddenly feel lighter or heavier, it would feel undefined. The planet would continue along its current path for a moment, but without gravity's curvature. That path would no longer be a path at all. It would become a straight line through space, indifferent to what came before. The sun would no longer be a center. Orbits would no longer be orbits. They would be memories without What is unsettling about this is not the imagined damage, but the loss of orientation. Gravity does not merely hold things together. It tells them where together is. It provides reference. Without it, there is no up or down, no center or edge, no inside or outside in the familiar sense. Space becomes a field without gravity. On a human scale, this loss of reference is what truly unsettles the mind. The fear is not of floating, but of not knowing where floating leads. The anxiety is not about motion, but about the absence of a path. Gravity is the sentence structure of the universe. Remove it, and everything becomes a list of words without meaning. This thought experiment reveals something important. We often assume that stability comes from presence, from things existing, from structures being solid. But gravity shows that stability comes from relationship, from how things are oriented toward one another, from the quiet rules that allow interaction to be predictable over time. In relationships, in lives, in inner worlds, the same principle applies. What feels most destabilizing is rarely sudden change itself. It is the loss of orientation, the sense that familiar reference points no longer apply, that the rules have changed without explanation, that the ground beneath experience no longer tells you where you are. Gravity's disappearance for a second would not be frightening because objects move. Objects are always moving. It would be frightening because movement would lose meaning. Without gravity, motion is no longer a journey. It is just continuation without context. This is why gravity often goes unnoticed. It does not announce itself as an event. It operates as background. And background, by definition, escapes attention until it is gone. We rarely thank the grammar of a language while speaking it, but its absence would make speech impossible. In human terms, there are relationships, routines, and assumptions that function like gravity. They do not demand attention, they do not sparkle, they simply orient experience. When they are present, life flows without constant recalibration. When they vanish, even briefly, the loss is immediately felt. The universe without gravity for 1 second would reveal how much cooperation exists beneath apparent independence. Every structure depends on something constant and discrete, something that does not ask to be noticed, something that works precisely because it does not interrupt. This perspective invites a gentler way of thinking about dependence. Dependence is often framed as weakness, as something to overcome. Gravity suggests otherwise. Dependence can be structural. It can be the very thing that allows freedom of movement within a system. Planets depend on gravity not to be trapped, but to move meaningfully. Without gravity, there is no orbit. Without orbit, there is no rhythm. Without rhythm, there is no predictability. Without predictability, there is no rest. Rest requires expectation. It requires the ability to assume that certain things will continue without supervision. Gravity provides this assurance. It tells the universe, and by extension the mind, that some relationships do not need to be renegotiated every moment. If gravity disappeared for 1 second and then returned, the universe would not simply reset. Orbits would be altered, paths would shift. Tiny changes would ripple forward, altering outcomes far into the future. This reveals another truth. Constancy matters not only in presence, but in continuity. Even brief interruptions can have lasting effects. And yet, gravity does not interrupt itself. It does not flicker. It does not hesitate. Its reliability is part of its power. It does not test systems by withdrawing. It supports them by remaining. This steadiness offers a model for understanding trust. Trust is not built through dramatic gestures. It is built through not leaving, through being present in ordinary moments, through continuity so consistent that it becomes invisible. The silence gravity would leave behind is instructive. It tells us what gravity has been saying all along without words. It has been saying, you are oriented. You are not drifting aimlessly. There is a structure to motion, even when you cannot see. This is why imagining gravity's absence can paradoxically deepen appreciation for its presence, not as a force to fear, but as a quiet sentence holding everything together. The phrase never spoken, but always understood. In the context of sleep, this matters deeply. Sleep requires surrender. Surrender requires trust. Trust requires something that does not disappear when attention fades. Gravity fulfills this requirement perfectly. It remains when consciousness loosens. It continues when vigilance stops. To imagine a universe without gravity is to imagine a universe that cannot sleep. A universe where nothing can rest because nothing knows where it belongs. Motion would be endless but meaningless. Stillness would be impossible because reference would. The fact that gravity does not disappear even for a second allows sleep to exist at all. It allows bodies to relax into support. It allows minds to stop checking whether the world will still be there when they wake. In this way, gravity is not just a physical condition, it is an existential one. It underwrites the assumption that continuity is real, that tomorrow follows today, that paths do not dissolve overnight. The final metaphor is simple, but precise. Gravity is like a sentence that is never spoken aloud, yet without it, no dialogue could continue. It does not compete with the words. It makes them possible. It does not draw attention. It provides coherence. As you rest now, there is no need to imagine gravity disappearing. Its very reliability allows the mind to let go of such vigilance. The universe is not testing itself. It is continuing. The silence gravity would leave behind is only useful as contrast. In reality, gravity remains, quiet, patient, constant. And because of that, everything else can finally be still. There is nothing you need to hold together. There is nothing you need to monitor. The structure that supports this moment does not depend on awareness. It does not depend on wakefulness. It does not depend on effort. Gravity does not speak, but it is always saying the same thing. There is a point in every long journey when explanation becomes unnecessary. Not because nothing more can be said, but because what matters most no longer needs words. This final movement is not meant to introduce new ideas or conclusions. It is meant to allow everything that has already been said to soften, to slow, and to settle into the background where it belongs. Like gravity itself, it does not demand attention. It remains present whether you follow it closely or let it fade. Throughout this journey, gravity has appeared not as a force that acts upon you, but as a context that has always surrounded you. A geometry that existed before understanding, before language, before concern. It has guided motion without instruction, preserved memory without intention, and offered stability without effort. Now, there is no need to hold these ideas clearly. They do not need to be remembered in detail. Their influence does not depend on clarity. The earth continues its motion, quietly, reliably. It turns beneath oceans and continents, beneath sleeping cities and darkened rooms. It falls around the sun without ever rushing, without ever hesitating. Nothing about this motion requires awareness. Nothing about it depends on vigilance. The planet does not need to be watched in order to remain where it is. As awareness softens, the mind may drift between thoughts or release them entirely. This drifting is not a loss of control, it is alignment. The same principle that allows planets to orbit allows thoughts to loosen their grip. There is no danger in this descent. There is only continuity. You are not leaving anything behind by resting. Nothing essential depends on your attention right now. Gravity does not pause when you sleep. The structure of reality does not thin when consciousness fades. The path remains. If thoughts arise, they do not need to be followed. They can pass like objects moving through space, guided by a geometry larger than themselves. No correction is required. No interpretation is necessary. Motion does not need supervision. The body, too, knows how to rest without instruction. Muscles release not because they are told to, but because resistance becomes unnecessary. Breathing settles into a rhythm older than intention. Weight redistributes. Pressure softens. The effort of standing within experience gradually dissolves. There is a quiet trust embedded in this process. Trust that the ground does not disappear. Trust that orientation does not collapse. Trust that the universe does not require constant checking in order to function. Gravity embodies this trust perfectly. It has never demanded reassurance. It has never failed through neglect. The images that remain now are simple. The Earth moving, space curving, paths continuing. None of these images need to be held sharply. They are not instructions. They are reminders of what does not need to be managed. Sleep is not a departure from reality. It is participation in it. A phase in a larger motion that includes waking, resting, remembering, and forgetting. Gravity does not distinguish between these states. It supports them all equally. As the final thoughts dissolve, there is no ending to reach. There is no moment when something must be concluded. Like an orbit, this narrative does not stop. It simply moves beyond the point where attention is required. You do not need to follow it any further. The path remains. There is a moment, often unnoticed, when effort quietly gives up its position as the center of experience. It does not announce its departure. It does not declare that control has ended. It simply loosens, as though realizing it was never fully in charge to begin with. This chapter exists in that moment, not as an explanation, not as a lesson, but as a widening of space where letting go no longer feels like risk. Much of human tension is built on the idea that release is dangerous, that if attention softens, something essential will slip away, that vigilance is the price of continuity. Gravity stands in quiet opposition to this belief. It has never required attention to function. It has never depended on awareness to remain consistent. And yet, it has guided every movement you have ever. From the first moment your body existed, gravity was already present, already shaping the conditions under which growth would occur. Bones formed with an understanding of weight. Muscles learned to coordinate with resistance. Balance emerged not through instruction, but through interaction with a force that never changed its rules. The body learned trust long before the mind learned fear. This trust is not intellectual, it is cellular. The body does not wonder whether gravity will continue tomorrow. It behaves as though continuity is guaranteed. This assumption is not naive, it is correct. Gravity has never broken its promise, not because it intends to keep one, but because consistency is its nature. As adulthood arrives, this embodied trust is often overwritten by conceptual anxiety. Responsibility expands, awareness sharpens, the sense of being personally accountable for outcomes grows heavier. Somewhere along the way, gravity stops being background and becomes threat. Falling becomes failure. Descent becomes loss. The quiet confidence of early movement is replaced by caution. Yet gravity itself has not changed. It has not become more demanding. It has not grown less reliable. Only the interpretation has shifted, and interpretations, unlike gravity, are not fixed. Letting go, in the gravitational sense, does not mean drifting without direction. It means releasing resistance to a path that already exists. It means allowing motion to proceed without unnecessary correction. This is not passivity. It is alignment. Consider again the image of orbit. A body in orbit is not held in place. It is allowed to move freely within a stable relationship. The stability does not come from stopping motion, but from permitting it. Control, in this system, would be destructive. Intervention would break the balance. There is a lesson here that extends beyond physics. Many forms of exhaustion arise not from doing too much, but from interfering too often, from attempting to steer processes that are already self-organizing, from mistrusting continuity and inserting effort where none is required. Gravity does not optimize. It does not adjust for efficiency. It does not rush outcomes. It allows systems to find their own equilibrium over time. This patience is not neglect, it is confidence. In the quiet hours of night, when external demands recede, the mind often confronts the absence of structure it relied on during the day. Without tasks, without deadlines, without direction, thoughts can scatter. Anxiety interprets this scattering as danger. Gravity offers an alternative interpretation. Movement without immediate purpose is not chaos, it is transition. Sleep itself is a transition state. Consciousness loosens, but identity does not vanish. Awareness dims, but existence continues uninterrupted. Gravity does not change its behavior during sleep. It does not reduce support. It does not test stability. The body remains oriented, whether watched or not. This is why sleep can be understood as an act of trust rather than surrender. Trust that orientation persists without supervision. Trust that continuity does not depend on effort. Trust that the path does not disappear when attention fades. There is a subtle relief in realizing that nothing essential is being held together by force of will. The universe does not ask you to manage it. Gravity does not ask you to participate. It includes you regardless. Letting go, then, is not abandoning responsibility. It is relinquishing a role you were never meant to fill. You are not the anchor of reality. You are not the stabilizer of motion. You are not the keeper of continuity. These functions are already handled. The body understands this intuitively. When allowed, it relaxes into support. Muscles soften. Breath deepens. The nervous system shifts away from vigilance. This shift is not collapse, it is recalibration. Gravity does not pull harder when you relax. It does not test the limits of your trust. It remains exactly as it was. The change happens entirely within resistance. There is often a fear that if one lets go too much, one will disappear. But disappearance is not what gravity allows. It allows persistence through motion. Objects do not vanish when they follow gravitational paths. They become part of larger systems. Stars do not disappear when they orbit galactic centers. Planets do not vanish when they fall around stars. Moons do not dissolve when they circle planets. Movement within gravity preserves identity rather than erasing it. The same principle applies inwardly. Letting thoughts drift does not erase the self. It allows it to rest. Identity does not need constant narration to exist. It does not need to be defended moment by moment. In fact, constant narration can obscure identity rather than clarify it. Silence does not erase presence, it reveals. Gravity teaches by example. It does not explain itself. It demonstrates continuity by existing continuously. It does not warn against falling. It makes falling safe by shaping it into orbit. There is no final instruction here, no technique to master, no mental posture to maintain. The permission to let go is not something that needs to be practiced. It is something that needs to be noticed. You are already letting go in small ways. With every exhale, with every moment attention wanders, with every instance where control softens without consequence. Gravity has been there through all of it. The night does not require you to hold it together. The universe does not ask for your vigilance. The path continues whether you watch or not. Letting go is not an action. It is the absence of unnecessary action. And gravity has always been ready. There is a stillness that does not belong to the absence of movement. It exists beneath motion, not instead of it. This stillness is not fragile. It does not break when something passes through it. It does not disappear when change occurs. It remains constant, even as everything within it shifts, turns, falls, and evolves. Gravity is inseparable from this stillness, not because it stops motion, but because it gives motion a place to belong. When people speak of stillness, they often imagine emptiness, a pause, a blank space where nothing happens. But the stillness gravity reveals is full. It is dense with continuity. Planets move through it, light bends within it, time unfolds inside it. Nothing escapes it, yet nothing is trapped. It does not restrain, it frames. This kind of stillness is difficult for the human mind to recognize because it does not announce itself as rest. It allows motion so complete that motion becomes unremarkable. The earth spins, the moon orbits, the sun drifts through the galaxy, and the galaxy itself moves within vast cosmic structures. None of this motion feels chaotic, because it occurs within a stillness that absorbs it without reaction. The mind, especially when tired, longs for this quality. Not for inactivity, but for motion that no longer needs commentary. Motion that does not require decision. Motion that unfolds without asking whether it is correct. In daily life, motion is often accompanied by evaluation. Every step is measured against outcome. Every change is assessed for risk. The nervous system learns to associate movement with consequence. Gravity offers a contrasting experience. It allows motion without judgment. Objects fall, orbit, and drift without being evaluated for success or failure. A stone released from the hand does not worry about whether it is falling correctly. A planet does not wonder whether it should continue its orbit. A star does not question its collapse. Motion occurs because motion is the natural response to the geometry that exists. This absence of evaluation is deeply restful. It removes the layer of mental tension that comes from constant self-monitoring. It reminds the mind that not all movement needs justification. There is a point, often late at night, when thoughts begin to lose their urgency. They still appear, but they no longer insist on being resolved. This is not confusion. It is a return to a more natural relationship with motion. Thoughts become like objects moving through space rather than problems demanding solution. Gravity does not solve problems. It makes them irrelevant by changing the context in which motion occurs. Within a stable gravitational field, objects do not need to decide where to go. The path already exists. This does not eliminate complexity. Orbits can be intricate, interactions can be subtle. But the complexity does not feel hostile. It feels contained. There is comfort in knowing that even the most complex motions in the universe arise from simple, consistent principles. Gravity does not adapt to circumstances. It does not negotiate. It does not respond emotionally. Its reliability is what allows complexity to exist without becoming chaos. For a mind accustomed to overthinking, this can feel like a release from responsibility, not because responsibility vanishes, but because it is no longer required at every moment. Some things simply continue. The long stillness beneath motion is what allows sleep to deepen. As awareness fades, the mind stops trying to track every movement of thought. It allows them to pass without engagement. The stillness does not require emptiness. It allows fullness without stress. Silence does not always bring rest, but continuity often does. A quiet room can still feel tense if the mind is braced, but a sense of being carried by something constant can soothe even in the presence of sound. Gravity carries without lifting. It supports without holding. It remains without watching. There is no effort involved in this support, no intention, no awareness. It does not care whether it is noticed. Its presence is unconditional. This unconditional presence is rare in human experience. Most forms of support come with expectations. Gravity offers support without condition. It does not strengthen when you are afraid. It does not weaken when you relax. It remains exactly what it is. Over time, the body learns to trust this, not as a belief, but as a fact embedded in experience. Balance emerges not through conscious control, but through repeated interaction with something reliable. Sleep is one of the few states where this trust becomes conscious again. The mind loosens its grip, control fades, and yet nothing falls apart. The body remains oriented. Breathing continues. The earth keeps moving. This is the long stillness beneath all motion. It does not require permission. It does not ask to be entered. It is always there. Even now, as attention drifts, gravity remains unchanged. It does not follow the mind. It does not wait for it. It simply continues. You are not required to reach this stillness. You are already within it. Motion may continue, thoughts may appear, sensations may shift. None of this disturbs the stillness. It holds everything without effort. The universe does not rush. It does not pause. It unfolds, and beneath it all, something remains quietly, endlessly still. Time is often experienced as pressure, a forward push that does not slow down, does not wait, does not care whether you are ready. Clocks divide it into units, schedules attempt to command it, memories pull it backward, worries push it ahead. For many minds, time feels like something that must be managed, chased, or defended against. Yet gravity reveals a different relationship with time, one that does not rush, does not threaten, and does not demand constant response. In the universe shaped by gravity, time is not an enemy, it is a collaborator. Gravity does not act independently of time, it works through it. Without long durations, gravity would be almost meaningless. Its influence accumulates slowly, patiently, through repetition and persistence. What gravity builds, it builds over time. What it stabilizes by refusing to hurry. This refusal is not indifference, it is consistency. Gravity does not need speed to be effective. It does not need urgency to be real. Its power emerges precisely because it allows time to do its work without interference. Stars are not assembled in moments of decision. They form gradually, as gas drifts, condenses, and warms under gravitational influence. Planets do not snap into orbit. They settle. Galaxies do not appear fully shaped. They grow, interact, stretch, and reorganize over billions of years. Gravity is never late to these processes because it does not operate on deadlines. Human anxiety often arises from a mismatch between internal urgency and external reality. The mind demands resolution faster than systems can naturally provide it. Gravity offers a different tempo. It demonstrates that outcomes do not need to arrive quickly to be inevitable. Some things become stable precisely because they are allowed to take their time. There is a quiet wisdom in this. The universe does not reward impatience. It does not accelerate because it is watched. It does not speed up because something is feared. Gravity does not react to panic. It continues at the same pace regardless. For someone lying awake at night, this perspective can soften the sense of racing against time. Sleep often feels delayed, not because the body cannot rest, but because the mind believes it must arrive somewhere quickly. Gravity offers an alternative. Nothing essential is late. The Earth is not behind schedule in its orbit. The Moon is not rushing to complete a cycle. Seasons do not hurry to change. They arrive when the geometry and motion make them inevitable. This inevitability does not feel oppressive. It feels dependable. Time in the gravitational universe is not a countdown. It is a medium, a space in which processes unfold naturally. Gravity does not compress time. It stretches it, giving events room to develop. This can be deeply reassuring for minds accustomed to self-criticism. Not everything needs to be resolved now. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Not every phase is meant to be short. Some states are transitional not because they are incomplete, but because they are part of a longer arc. Orbit itself is a relationship with time. A single revolution may take hours, days, or centuries. The duration does not change the validity of the orbit. A slow orbit is not a failure. A fast one is not superior. Each exists within its. Gravity allows these rhythms to coexist without conflict. Short cycles nest within long ones, days within years, years within lifetimes, lifetimes within cosmic eras. Nothing is required to match pace with anything else. Human rest often improves when this nested sense of time is allowed, when the mind stops demanding that everything align to a single urgent scale. Sleep does not need to solve tomorrow. It does not need to prepare for the next hour. It only needs to belong to the larger rhythm of rest and wakefulness. Gravity does not divide time into productive and unproductive. It does not measure value by speed. It does not privilege action over stillness. Everything moves according to its conditions. This absence of judgment is important. Much internal tension comes from evaluating time spent resting as wasted. Gravity offers no such evaluation. From its perspective, rest is simply another state of motion. The body is still moving through space. The earth is still turning. Nothing has stopped. In this sense, rest is not a pause in time. It is participation in a different tempo, a slower one, a broader one that includes inactivity without interpreting it as law. There is a particular calm that arises when urgency dissolves. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. Attention widens. The need to arrive somewhere fades. This calm is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. Gravity creates spaciousness by stretching time, by allowing distance and duration to matter, by refusing to compress everything into immediacy. This is why rushing often feels unnatural. It conflicts with the underlying tempo of the systems we inhabit. Bodies do not accelerate infinitely. Minds do not resolve everything instantly. Gravity does not hurry them to. When the mind aligns with gravity's pace, something softens. There is permission to take as long as is needed, to unfold at a rate that feels sustainable rather than forced. Sleep arrives more easily when time is no longer treated as a threat, when tomorrow is not experienced as a demand waiting impatiently. Gravity does not lean forward into the future, it remains evenly present. The future, like the past, exists within gravity's continuity. Paths extend. Orbits repeat. Cycles return. Nothing essential is rushed out of existence. As awareness drifts now, there is no need to keep track of time passing. Gravity does not require it. The night will continue. The earth will turn. Morning will arrive whether watched or not. You are not falling behind. You are moving within a rhythm that does not hurry. And gravity is patient enough to wait with you. Time is often experienced as pressure, a forward push that does not slow down, does not wait, does not care whether you are ready. Clocks divide it into units, schedules attempt to command it, memories pull it backward, worries push it ahead. For many minds, time feels like something that must be managed, chased, or defended against. Yet gravity reveals a different relationship with time, one that does not rush, does not threaten, and does not demand constant response. In the universe shaped by gravity, time is not an enemy, it is a collaborator. Gravity does not act independently of time, it works through it. Without long durations, gravity would be almost meaningless. Its influence accumulates slowly, patiently, through repetition and persistence. What gravity builds, it builds over time. What it stabilizes by refusing to hurry. This refusal is not indifference. It is consistency. Gravity does not need speed to be effective. It does not need urgency to be real. Its power emerges precisely because it allows time to do its work without interference. Stars are not assembled in moments of decision. They form gradually as gas drifts, condenses, and warms under gravitational influence. Planets do not snap into orbit. They settle. Galaxies do not appear fully shaped. They grow, interact, stretch, and reorganize over billions of years. Gravity is never late to these processes because it does not operate on deadline. Human anxiety often arises from a mismatch between internal urgency and external reality. The mind demands resolution faster than systems can naturally provide it. Gravity offers a different tempo. It demonstrates that outcomes do not need to arrive quickly to be inevitable. Some things become stable precisely because they are allowed to take their time. There is a quiet wisdom in this. The universe does not reward impatience. It does not accelerate because it is watched. It does not speed up because something is feared. Gravity does not react to panic. It continues at the same pace regardless. For someone lying awake at night, this perspective can soften the sense of racing against time. Sleep often feels delayed, not because the body cannot rest, but because the mind believes it must arrive somewhere quickly. Gravity offers an alternative. Nothing essential is late. The Earth is not behind schedule in its orbit. The Moon is not rushing to complete a cycle. Seasons do not hurry to change. They arrive when the geometry and motion make them inevitable. This inevitability does not feel oppressive. it feels dependable. Time in the gravitational universe is not a countdown. It is a medium, a space in which processes unfold naturally. Gravity does not compress time, it stretches it, giving events room to develop fully. This can be deeply reassuring for minds accustomed to self-criticism. Not everything needs to be resolved now. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Not every phase is meant to be short. Some states are transitional not because they are incomplete, but because they are part of a longer arc. Orbit itself is a relationship with time. A single revolution may take hours, days, or centuries. The duration does not change the validity of the orbit. A slow orbit is not a failure. A fast one is not superior. Each exists within its own rhythm. Gravity allows these rhythms to coexist without conflict. Short cycles nest within long ones, days within years, years within lifetimes, lifetimes within cosmic eras. Nothing is required to match pace with anything else. Human rest often improves when this nested sense of time is allowed, when the mind stops demanding that everything align to a single urgent scale. Sleep does not need to solve tomorrow. It does not need to prepare for the next hour. It only needs to belong to the larger rhythm of rest and wakefulness. Gravity does not divide time into productive and unproductive. It does not measure value by speed. It does not privilege action over stillness. Everything moves according to its condition. This absence of judgment is important. Much internal tension comes from evaluating time spent resting as wasted. Gravity offers no such evaluation. From its perspective, rest is simply another state of motion. The body is still moving through space. The earth is still turning. Nothing has stopped. In this sense, rest is not a pause in time. It is participation in a different tempo, a slower one, a broader one that includes inactivity without interpreting it as long. There is a particular calm that arises when urgency dissolves. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. Attention widens. The need to arrive somewhere fades. This calm is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. Gravity creates spaciousness by stretching time, by allowing distance and duration to matter, by refusing to compress everything into immediacy. This is why rushing often feels unnatural. It conflicts with the underlying tempo of the systems we inhabit. Bodies do not accelerate infinitely. Minds do not resolve everything instantly. Gravity does not hurry them. When the mind aligns with gravity's pace, something softens. There is permission to take as long as is needed, to unfold at a rate that feels sustainable rather than forced. Sleep arrives more easily when time is no longer treated as a threat, when tomorrow is not experienced as a demand waiting impatiently. Gravity does not lean forward into the future. It remains evenly present. The future, like the past, exists within gravity's continuity. Paths extend, orbits repeat, cycles return. Nothing essential is rushed out of existence. As awareness drifts now, there is no need to keep track of time passing. Gravity does not require it. The night will continue, the earth will turn. Morning will arrive whether watched or not. You are not falling behind. You are moving within a rhythm that does not hurry. And gravity is patient enough to wait with you. Time is often experienced as pressure, a forward push that does not slow down, does not wait, does not care whether you are ready. Clocks divide it into units. Schedules attempt to command it. Memories pull it backward. Worries push it ahead. For many minds, time feels like something that must be managed, chased, or defended against. Yet gravity reveals a different relationship with time, one that does not rush, does not threaten, and does not demand constant response. In the universe shaped by gravity, time is not an enemy. It is a collaborator. Gravity does not act independently of time. It works through it. Without long durations, gravity would be almost meaningless. Its influence accumulates slowly, patiently, through repetition and persistence. What gravity builds, it builds over time. What it stabilizes by refusing to hurry. This refusal is not indifference, it is consistency. Gravity does not need speed to be effective. It does not need urgency to be real. Its power emerges precisely because it allows time to do its work without interference. Stars are not assembled in moments of decision. They form gradually as gas drifts, condenses, and warms under gravitational influence. Planets do not snap into orbit, they settle. Galaxies do not appear fully shaped. They grow, interact, stretch, and reorganize over billions of years. Gravity is never late to these processes because it does not operate on deadline. Human anxiety often arises from a mismatch between internal urgency and external reality. The mind demands resolution faster than systems can naturally provide it. Gravity offers a different tempo. It demonstrates that outcomes do not need to arrive quickly to be inevitable. Some things become stable precisely because they are allowed to take their time. There is a quiet wisdom in this. The universe does not reward impatience. It does not accelerate because it is watched. It does not speed up because something is feared. Gravity does not react to panic. It continues at the same pace regardless. For someone lying awake at night, this perspective can soften the sense of racing against time. Sleep often feels delayed not because the body cannot rest, but because the mind believes it must arrive somewhere quickly. Gravity offers an alternative. Nothing essential is late. The Earth is not behind schedule in its orbit. The Moon is not rushing to complete a cycle. Seasons do not hurry to change. They arrive when the geometry and motion make them inevitable. This inevitability does not feel oppressive. It feels dependable. Time in the gravitational universe is not a countdown. It is a medium, a space in which processes unfold naturally. Gravity does not compress time. It stretches it, giving events room to develop fully. This can be deeply reassuring for minds accustomed to self-criticism. Not everything needs to be resolved now. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Not every phase is meant to be short. Some states are transitional not because they are incomplete, but because they are part of a longer arc. Orbit itself is a relationship with time. A single revolution may take hours, days, or centuries. The duration does not change the validity of the orbit. A slow orbit is not a failure. A fast one is not superior. Each exists within its own rhythm. Gravity allows these rhythms to coexist without conflict. Short cycles nest within long ones, days within years, years within lifetimes, lifetimes within cosmic eras. Nothing is required to match pace with anything else. Human rest often improves when this nested sense of time is allowed, when the mind stops demanding that everything align to a single urgent scale. Sleep does not need to solve tomorrow. It does not need to prepare for the next hour. It only needs to belong to the larger rhythm of rest and wakefulness. Gravity does not divide time into productive and unproductive. It does not measure value by speed. It does not privilege action over stillness. Everything moves according to its conditions. This absence of judgment is important. Much internal tension comes from evaluating time spent resting as wasted. Gravity offers no such evaluation. From its perspective, rest is simply another state of motion. The body is still moving through space. The Earth is still turning. Nothing has stopped. In this sense, rest is not a pause in time. It is participation in a different tempo, a slower one, a broader one that includes inactivity without interpreting it as loss. There is a particular calm that arises when urgency dissolves. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. Attention widens. The need to arrive somewhere fades. This calm is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. Gravity creates spaciousness by stretching time, by allowing distance and duration to matter, by refusing to compress everything into immediacy. This is why rushing often feels unnatural. It conflicts with the underlying tempo of the systems we inhabit. Bodies do not accelerate infinitely. Minds do not resolve everything instantly. Gravity does not hurry them to. When the mind aligns with gravity's pace, something softens. There is permission to take as long as is needed, to unfold at a rate that feels sustainable rather than forced. Sleep arrives more easily when time is no longer treated as a threat, when tomorrow is not experienced as a demand waiting impatiently. Gravity does not lean forward into the future. It remains evenly present. The future, like the past, exists within gravity's continuity. Paths extend, orbits repeat, cycles return. Nothing essential is rushed out of existence. As awareness drifts now, there is no need to keep track of time passing. Gravity does not require it. The night will continue. The earth will turn. Morning will arrive whether watched or not. You are not falling behind. You are moving within a rhythm that does not hurry, and gravity is patient enough to wait with you.